Unsolved mysteries have always intrigued people because they represent the unknown and the unexplained, which can be both fascinating and unsettling. Humans are naturally curious creatures, and we are always looking for answers to the questions that intrigue us. Unsolved mysteries present a challenge to our curiosity, prompting us to investigate and search for answers. Mysterious object spotted above Iceland. This mysterious object was captured above Iceland, prompting people to speculate what it was. Oddly enough, it could be seen leaving a large trail behind it, but those who witnessed it said that it didn't look like a plane. Interestingly, when the photographs were uploaded, others said they had seen similar-looking objects, but did say that they weren't as big as this. One idea that was put forward was that it could have come from space. In the last 12 months, NASA and the European Space Agency have reported several objects that have come close to our planet. But it was reported that at the time of this sighting, there was no meteor in the area that matched the description of this object. Others went down the route of suggesting that the object could be a mysterious aircraft. One interesting thing about this photograph is that it's really clear, something that doesn't usually happen with these types of images. Another observation that people have made is that it looks like the smoke is ringed, with many saying that they haven't seen anything like this before. As of right now, not much information can be found about the object. Some have said that if it did come from space, then NASA and other space agencies didn't detect it, something that would be very unlikely as space agencies use a variety of methods to detect asteroids and other near-Earth objects. Space agencies use large telescopes on the ground to scan the sky for asteroids. These telescopes can detect the faint light emitted by asteroids and track their movements over time to determine their orbits. Radar detection is also used to detect space debris. Radar signals bounce off the surface of the asteroid, allowing scientists to measure its size, shape, and other properties. Asteroids emit infrared radiation, which can be detected by space-based or ground-based telescopes equipped with infrared sensors. This can help scientists determine the asteroid's size, shape, and composition. Once an asteroid has been detected, space agencies can use a variety of methods to study it in more detail, such as sending spacecraft to take measurements or analyzing the light reflected by the asteroid to determine its composition. It's for this reason that those who've seen these images have said that the object's identity remains a mystery. The next mystery we'll be covering is the Black Bird of Chernobyl. According to the residents of the town of Pripyat, there had been a number of reports and claims of a strange winged creature often seen flying over the town late at night on a variety of different occasions. However, in the case of the workers at the Chernobyl power plant, there appeared to be much more alarming reports that were provided. In the months leading up to the Chernobyl incident on the 26th of April back in 1986, the workers at the Chernobyl power plant noticed a mysterious creature hovering over the plant, and sometimes even resting on the larger towers and areas of construction. The creature was identical to the Mothman reports that had been coming out of Point Pleasant. What grew more perplexing for the workers were the reported number of incidents of which people often claimed to have experienced harrowing nightmares of the creature that would manifest into threatening phone calls from unknown numbers, calling them all throughout the night. Many residents of Pripyat and the workers at the Chernobyl power plant often described the creature as resembling the shape of a man with wings and piercing glowing red eyes. This creature would later be referred to as the Black Bird of Chernobyl, but oddly enough, encounters would cease to exist in the region shortly after the Chernobyl incident. The Chernobyl incident is known worldwide as one of the largest tragedies seen as potentially the most environmentally damaging of its time. Scientists today speculate that the site of the town of Pripyat and Chernobyl will not be habitable for another 20,000 years. Those who've researched the creature have said that it appears before disaster, never to be seen again once the disaster has taken place. It could very well be that the creature had been the Mothman, which is widely known throughout the United States, and at the time it was warning the workers of an impending doom that could have left a much larger amount of land completely uninhabitable for much longer. Although it took a lot of research and digging, it appears that the first ever reported sighting of the Mothman comes from a small town that was located more than 80 miles away from that of the town of Point Pleasant. The story goes that according to a group of 5 individuals, of whom worked as gravediggers in the town of Clendenin, West Virginia, as they were busy working at a burial plot getting ready to dig a new grave, they heard a strange noise overhead. At first, they were unaware of what could have been causing the strange noise, but it persisted for a while before one of them spotted a figure floating above them. They claimed that it looked human, almost as if a person was floating without the use of ropes, strings, wings, or hover designs of any kind, and that this strange humanoid figure was moving between the autumn trees in the area. They reported that all 5 of them saw this human-like figure and believed it to have originally been a prank of some kind. But as they watched it slowly move away from them, they believed the creature to be far more ominous than usual. They then left and quickly reported the sighting to the police department of Clendenin, West Virginia. The reports indicate that the sighting originally occurred on the 12th of November, back in 1966. However, many have often disregarded this sighting, believing that given the fact that the creature was reported as not having wings of any kind, then it could not have possibly been the Mothman sighted in the town of Point Pleasant. This is argued by others who believe that wings have not always been a staple of the creature's design, and that many have reported the creature appearing more as a man than a moth. The first encounter of the town of Point Pleasant. After following the trail of the first ever reported sighting of the Mothman, discovering the first ever reported sighting of the creature in the small town of Point Pleasant became an increasingly more difficult event to find. Although there were numerous reports in the region, along with myths and rumors circulating at this point in time, it appears that the first ever report filed by any individuals when discussing an encounter appear to come from the combined witness account of 4 individuals, all of which saw and reported the creature on the night of the 15th of November in 1966. This was just 3 days after the first ever reported sighting of the creature in the town of Clendenin. The accounts of the 4 individuals came from 2 separate couples who were driving late at night in the town of Point Pleasant, as both almost slammed into each other when they saw the Mothman creature standing in the middle of the road before floating away. Although the report does not give any information on what street and at what specific time the creature was seen, it does provide an extensive witness report and quotes taken from the 4 individuals and their encounter. One of the accounts comes from a man named Steve Mallette, of whom claimed that the creature looked like a man with wings, and that it was incredibly hard to describe as it looked like nothing he had ever seen before. Another account comes from Roger Scarberry, who described the Mothman creature as having glowing red eyes. They were roughly 2 inches in diameter and 6 inches apart. Although the woman did not leave any additional comments, they confirmed the accounts of their significant others. Though this was the first ever reported encounter of the creature, different sightings and witness accounts in the small town of Point Pleasant would persist and worsen until the event of the Silver Bridge collapse on the 15th of December in 1967. Oddly enough, after the event, no additional reported cases were filed, and it appeared that the creature vanished off of the face of the earth. The mysterious black triangle spotted above England. Portsmouth is a historic city located on the south coast of England in the county of Hampshire. It's known for several things, including its naval history. Portsmouth is most famous for its long association with the Royal Navy. It has been a major port and naval base for over 800 years and is home to several historic ships, including the HMS Victory and the Mary Rose Museum. Back in 2015, a mysterious aircraft was captured above the city. A man posted the discovery on social media, saying that his nan captured a strange photograph above Portsmouth. He said the following: "My nan sent me these photos while I was away. She lives in Portsmouth, which is located in the south of England. She told me the photos were taken a few seconds apart, but she couldn't understand what she had captured in one of the images. After reviewing the photo, I couldn't work out what the object was, and I asked her if she saw or heard anything while taking the photographs, but she said that she didn't. After doing some research, I found out that triangular aircrafts are actually quite commonly seen above the south of England. This is the only thing that matched these photographs." End quote. Interestingly, these black triangles are some of the most documented sightings when it comes to mysterious aircrafts. But as of right now, no military has come forward to say that they are behind the sightings. There are 2 different aircraft known as the Aurora, and there is some controversy about whether one of them actually exists. The first Aurora is a reconnaissance aircraft, which was officially revealed by the US Air Force in 1985. This aircraft was designed to replace the aging U-2 spy plane and is known as the Lockheed Martin SR-71 Blackbird. This aircraft was retired in 1998 and is no longer in service. The second Aurora is a rumored hypersonic aircraft, which is said to be capable of traveling at speeds of up to Mach 6 or higher. There have been reports of sightings of a strange aircraft flying at high altitudes and speeds over the years, but the existence of this aircraft has not been confirmed by any official sources. Some speculate that this aircraft may be a secret project developed by the US military, while others believe it's a misidentification of other known aircraft or natural phenomena. Military enthusiasts, along with those interested in the unknown, are of the belief that the aircraft is very much real and point to the countless sightings that have been made since the 1980s. Although reports go back further than this, it was during the 1980s that the majority of reports were made. These black triangles have been observed doing things that conventional aircraft can't do, for example, hovering motionless in the sky without making a sound, using cloaking technology, having the ability to make their way into restricted airspace, having a fascination with military bases, especially ones that are in possession of nuclear warheads, and being able to fly at tens of thousands of miles per hour. For those unaware, these triangular aircrafts have been reported all across the world, and according to data gathered by the military, they are most commonly seen above the United States and the United Kingdom. As of right now, no military has come forward and said that they are in possession of these aircrafts, which in turn has caused some to speculate about who owns these crafts and where the tech came from. The reason people think that these aircrafts belong to the military is because they've often been witnessed above military bases, and because they have an appearance that looks similar to aircrafts like the B-2 bomber, which makes people think that this black triangle might be an updated version that hasn't been officially announced to the public. As of right now, there's no official answer for what these black triangles are, and eyewitnesses have been left confused as to how such an aircraft is able to achieve what it does. Amateur researchers have said that it does open up an interesting discussion, noting that if these triangles belong to us, then it means we have aircrafts that are able to hit extreme speeds, and that high-up officials are keeping this technology under wraps. As some have pointed out though, if these do belong to us, then why are military bases chasing them off whenever they enter restricted airspace? As of right now, all we can do is continue logging these types of sightings in the hopes that we can get one step closer to understanding what they are and where they're coming from. Hunters and experienced outdoorsmen suddenly vanishing. Sam Adams' disappearance. Over 60 years ago, the small town of Ovando, Montana, would be at the center of a missing persons report when a 39-year-old hunter by the name of Sam Adams would be reported missing by his two hunting partners under the most mysterious of circumstances. Sam's story would begin when he and his closest friends, Ed Hodges and Calvin Trusty, both 40 and 52 years old, planned a short weekend trip to the mountains southwest of Ovando and roughly 20 miles southeast of Seeley Lake. Initially, the three men would start their hunting trip together, making a small base camp at a lower elevation where they planned on funneling some of the wild game into a tighter path. However, as they started their hike through the area, it soon became apparent to both Ed Hodges and Calvin Trusty that Sam had become separated from the group somewhere along the trail. Neither of the men were certain exactly where and when Sam Adams had disappeared, and started calling out for him and waiting to see if he would catch up to where they were. After a few more minutes, the men would return to their camp to wait for Sam to return, but would grow increasingly worried as several hours would pass before any sign of Sam had turned up. Terrified that Sam was lost, Ed Hodges and Calvin Trusty would report Sam Adams missing to the United States Forest Service on the 27th of October, back in 1958. Due to the strange nature of Sam's disappearance, investigators would almost immediately assume that a possible extermination had taken place and not that Sam had merely become lost in the area. Additionally, the location where Ed and Calvin believed they had last seen Sam Adams was described by investigators as having been extremely rugged, with steep mountain peaks and deep canyons, making it difficult for the missing 39-year-old to have wandered out of the area on accident. After questioning Ed Hodges and Calvin Trusty separately to get each man's version of events and asking about what they did over the course of the day, Investigators would then interview Sam's wife for any further information that she could provide to the investigators about Sam's preparations for the trip. It would be at around this point that Sam's wife would confirm with investigators that Sam had been equipped with weaponry, sufficient warm clothing, a set of matches, and enough food to last for the entire weekend. Given the fact that Sam was believed to have disappeared while carrying a pack of all of his equipment, search and rescue teams were confident that even if Sam had been lost, he would have been fine for several days by relying solely on his camping equipment. Within only a few hours after Sam Adams was reported missing, over 100 search and rescue volunteers would join the investigators in locating the missing hunter. Volunteers would include soldiers from the Montana National Guard, officers with the local Powell County Sheriff's Department, agents from the Montana Fish and Games Department, as well as several dozen hunters from multiple different private hunting parties that would join search efforts during their vacations and weekends off from work. After an organized grid search pattern was established surrounding a possible location where investigators believed that Sam might have established a primitive campsite, search and rescue volunteers would cover almost a dozen square miles encircling the possible campsite. Oddly enough, despite the many different helping hands, military assistants and experienced hunters from the area searching non-stop for the next 17 days, no sign of Sam Adams was ever recovered. After over 2 weeks of organized search, the local Powell County Sheriff's Office would terminate the search and rescue operations for Sam Adams and continue pursuing a possible alternative cause. It would not be for almost another 9 months that any news surrounding the Sam Adams case would come to light. Despite the official search for the missing hunter being terminated on the 14th of November, 1958, Sam's hunting partners, Ed Hodges and Calvin Trusty, would continue the search for their missing friend. According to Sam's wife, Ed and Calvin would use every possible weekend and vacation day to travel to the area where Sam had last been seen to search for any sign of their friend. After almost 9 months, on the 12th of July of the following year, Ed and Calvin's efforts would finally pay off, when the two men would locate the remains of a bizarre scene involving their missing friend. According to an article published on the 14th of July by the Deseret News local newspaper, Ed Hodges and Calvin Trusty would find Sam's rifle, seemingly smashed into 3 parts, Sam's intact wallet, both of his shoes scarred with teeth marks and torn pieces of clothing. Close by, the men would also find signs that a large bear had been in the area, including scratch marks on the bark of a tree and the remnants of clothing that appeared to have been half digested. The entire scene was described by investigators as an epic battle covering almost a 50-foot diameter. Unable to make any sense of the strange scene, local law enforcement would bring in experienced crime scene specialists in an attempt to provide a logical explanation for what had happened. After thoroughly investigating the site, the crime scene specialists would claim that they believed that Sam had most likely taken aim and wounded a bear. After firing at the creature, he would use all but 2 bullets in an attempt to take out the creature as it charged towards him, but would only end up injuring and enraging the animal. The bear would attack Sam, leaving him non-fatally wounded, before wandering off. While on the ground, Sam would remove his shoelaces and attempt to use them as primitive tourniquets as he crawled alongside a fallen tree and made several attempts to light a fire to get warm. With the last 2 rounds, Sam would fire into the air, in the hopes of a nearby hunter coming to his assistance. Either due to the noises or to mere hunger, the injured bear would then reappear, which is when Sam would use the rifle as a blunt instrument, striking the bear 3 times, causing it to break into 3 separate pieces before being taken away by the animal. After hearing the story that the crime scene specialists posited forth, many experienced hunters and outdoorsmen found the claims far too outlandish to believe. One of the primary critics that's skeptical of the bear story stated that Sam had never been recovered. Although specialists would claim that the bear must have dragged Sam off into the wilderness, no evidence to support the claim would be found, such as dragged tracks or nearby bear dens. Other skeptics would argue that it seemed highly unlikely, if not impossible, for Sam to have struck his rifle against the bear 3 times before being dragged away, nor would it have been possible for a wounded Sam to generate enough force in his strikes to snap the rifle into 3 distinct parts. According to Sam's wife and his 2 hunting partners, Sam had been equipped with a secondary firearm. Oddly enough, Sam's belt was recovered with no signs of damage or claw marks. Yet, Another strange fact would soon emerge that made it difficult for investigators to believe the claims of the crime scene specialists. In one of the articles published in a local newspaper, several search and rescue volunteers would come forward to talk about a peculiar fact that was completely excluded from the local law enforcement's explanation of the bizarre scene. According to the search and rescue volunteers, there had been a second area where items belonging to Sam had been recovered and was described by volunteers as being a completely different scene. Located over 200 yards apart, investigators would locate a second area where Sam's belt, hat, and both of his socks would be found, completely undamaged. It appeared difficult to explain how Sam's shoes could have been so badly torn up, yet his socks and belt had been in perfect condition and not devoured by the animal. What had yet to be found was just as bizarre. Despite the belt having been in perfect condition, Sam's holsters were missing. Search and rescue volunteers would also tell reporters that the location of where these two scenes were discovered did not appear to make any logical sense. Both scenes would be found less than 1.5 miles from where the main search and rescue operations were centered almost 9 months prior. Other search and rescue volunteers would tell investigators that they had crossed into the area where the epic battle had taken place and had not come across any signs of Sam Adams during the initial search. Ed Hodges and Calvin Trusty would also talk about the high strangeness involved with the discovery, claiming that they had been in the area continuing the search for more than 7 months and had passed in and around the area over 100 times, but failed to notice anything of interest prior to their July discovery. As of right now, there's many who suspect that something more mysterious played out, and that perhaps a cover-up took place. The mysterious disappearance of Raymond Walter Wiggs. Back in 2003, a young 19-year-old man by the name of Raymond Walter Wiggs III would suddenly vanish from his group while hiking through the Little Gypsum Valley National Park located in the state of Colorado. Although the nature of his disappearance and subsequent search were bizarre, it would be the recovery of Raymond Walter Wiggs that would spark subsequent investigation and growing rumors of a possible dark, ritualistic cult when investigators would uncover increasingly strange evidence. According to investigators, 19-year-old Raymond Walter Wiggs III, who grew up in the small town of Alanson, Michigan, went on a 3-day planned hike with his girlfriend, a 24-year-old woman by the name of Leslie Brookshire, his friend, 23-year-old Corey Ulrich, and Corey's father, 41-year-old Kevin Ulrich. Although the hikers were from the small town of Alanson, Michigan, the group had planned the trip several months in advance, arriving at Little Gypsum Valley National Park together. Once the 4 hikers got together at Moab, they decided to wait until the following day and begin their hike to the valley sometime after 3 in the morning on the 24th of October. Due to the growing winter months, the early morning trail was covered in complete darkness as the hikers traveled along the trails to the valley. Despite the low light, the hikers remained confident about their trip, as the group had more than a decade of experience between them, as well as the fact that the trails they followed to the valley were along amateur trails that all connected back with each other, and could easily be used to find their parked vehicles in the event that anyone got lost. After walking several miles, at some point in time after 3 in the morning, the group would claim that Raymond Walter Wiggs had suddenly disappeared. Raymond's girlfriend, Leslie Brookshire, would later tell investigators that as the group was walking, it had been several minutes before they heard anything from Raymond, and after spending almost an hour searching around and yelling his name, soon realized that he was nowhere to be found. Investigators would initially be suspicious of the group, as it would become apparent that the group would fail to report Raymond missing for almost 48 hours after his disappearance. The group would later clarify to investigators that the primary reason for why they would delay in reporting Raymond's disappearance was due to the fact that it was fairly common for Raymond to venture off down different trail pathways on his own during past trail hikes, and also believed that Raymond would meet up with the group later in the day at their designated campsite. Using matching witness statements from the hiking group, the San Miguel County Sheriff's Department gathered from their investigations a theory as to where Raymond most likely went missing, and determined that he had probably become lost roughly 1.5 miles south of the Road 20R in a remote region of the national park located near a drainage path. The area, referred to by the national park as the Grassy Hills, is considered to be one of the most wide-open remote regions of the national park, stretching out in a flat desert with large rocks and boulders scattered throughout the area. The San Miguel County Sheriff's Department believed that as the group had passed through the spot, using one of the amateur trails, there was a nearby drainage path that Raymond had wandered onto in the dark and had become separated from his group. Using the drainage path as the potential last known location of Raymond Walter Wiggs, the San Miguel Sheriff's Department would establish one of the largest search and rescue operations in the area, utilizing trained aircraft equipped with state-of-the-art cameras and experienced search and rescue teams trained in traversing the area and locating missing persons. Despite the support aircraft and more than 100 trained search and rescue volunteers on the ground, no sign of Raymond Walter Wiggs was ever recovered within the first 48 hours of the search. It would be after 2 days of search and rescue operations that the Utah State Law Enforcement would join in the search for the missing 19-year-old, due to his last known location having been so close to the Utah state border. Oddly enough, the local newspapers would publish conflicting accounts and details of the investigation, supplied to them by the San Miguel Sheriff's Department. According to one publication, it was originally stated that the 19-year-old had disappeared only shortly after exiting his vehicle when the group arrived in Moab, and had never stepped foot onto the trails when he had suddenly vanished. This account would be immediately conflicted when another local publication would state that Raymond had disappeared almost an hour into their hike and had vanished far away from the area where investigators suspected the 19-year-old had accidentally wandered off and had gone missing while close at the Little Gypsum Valley when the group reached the region sometime in the late afternoon of the 24th of October. Even more concerning, it became apparent to investigators that though Raymond had last been seen on the 24th, the group he had hiked with had not reported his disappearance until the 26th of October. Raymond's hiking partners would tell investigators that they had originally believed that Raymond would meet up with them at their designated planned camping site, but then would later change their story, claiming that they had spent more than a day and a half searching for Raymond throughout the area before getting worried that something far more serious had occurred. Although investigators were originally suspicious about the group's behavior, it would become apparent that past hiking and camping trips with Raymond often featured the group splitting up and meeting up in designated areas much later. And given the many years of experience that the group had with hiking and camping, their fears were greatly reduced. During the search efforts, the San Miguel Sheriff's Department and the Utah State Police Department had more than 100 search and rescue volunteers scouring the area in a 30-mile radius for Raymond Wiggs. Among the search and rescue teams, the departments utilized over a dozen all-terrain vehicles, equestrian teams, experienced hikers, and low-flying aircraft, including state helicopters and a Super Cub airplane. By the third day of the search for the missing 19-year-old, a trained group working with the Phoenix Police Department would fly into the area with their trained Bloodhound search and rescue team to assist in the rescue operations. After spending another 48 hours searching for Raymond, the Bloodhound team was not only unable to find any sign of Raymond, the canines were also unable to pick up any identifiable scent at any part along the trail, furthering suspicions that Raymond had never entered the trail after arriving at Moab. Unfortunately for the Wiggs family and the volunteer search efforts, after 2 weeks of looking for the missing 19-year-old, no sign of Raymond Walter Wiggs was ever recovered. It would not be for another 4 years until investigators would finally get an update on the missing person case, when an experienced hunter would make a startling discovery. On the 15th of November, back in 2007, a hunter passing through a small dried tributary would claim to find what he believed to have been human remains, located in the far southwestern area of the Little Gypsum Valley, a remote area located more than 10 miles away from where Raymond was last seen. The chief investigator for the San Miguel County, a man by the name of Norman Squire, would recover the remains of 19-year-old Raymond lodged in a natural depression of the canyon wall. According to Norman Squire's report, the recovered remains and the surrounding area did not support any evidence of foul play. However, several strange facts that the detective would uncover would reopen theories and rumors of a far more creepy claim. On the 14th of November, back in 2007, Norman Squire would hold a press conference with the Daily Press, stating that he and fellow investigators did not support any claims of foul play, and that it was most likely that Raymond Wiggs had genuinely become lost. Yet, despite these statements, the detective would seem hesitant to support the theory that Raymond had merely wandered off and gotten lost. The cause for hesitation appeared to be due to the scene of the remains. According to official reports, investigators located various parts of Raymond. Although the site of Raymond's remains were 10 miles from where he had last been seen, investigators noted that the area was only 4 miles away from where the group had planned to camp, making it likely that Raymond must have wandered in the same direction in the hopes of reaching the designated camp. During that same news conference, the article published by the Daily Press would also write a paragraph claiming that it appeared as if Raymond Wiggs had removed his necklace and ring and placed them into a naturally formed dent in the canyon wall directly above where his bones were found. It seemed unlikely to the autopsy investigator that the rings and jewelry were placed by Wiggs prior to his passing, and rumors from fellow investigators would make the claim that the scene felt more like a bizarre ritual than a natural passing. In many causes of accidental passings from missing persons, the remains of the people are often found intact with evidence of hypothermia. However, in the case of Raymond Wiggs, his remains were found slightly scattered and piled, with his jewelry placed above his remains in a small depression in the wall, similar to an old druidic shrine. It would be because of this weird shrine-like placement of Raymond's bones and jewelry that rumors of Raymond having been the victim of a ritual began to spread. Investigators would dismiss the strange placement of Raymond's remains and missing bones as evidence that a large natural predator had been in the area and possibly carried off pieces of the remains. However, National Park rangers would voice concern over this theory. According to the Little Gypsum Valley National Park, the region where Raymond's remains had been found holds no large natural predators due to the fact that the area is a remote region of vast desert, making it almost impossible for any large natural predators to have safely reached the canyon. Additionally, investigators found it incredibly difficult to explain exactly how they were unable to locate Raymond, even though the search efforts for the 19-year-old boy had been delayed almost 48 hours after his initial disappearance. If Raymond had truly been lost, it would reason that he would have been alive in the area for almost a week, as he had the necessary gear and equipment to last several days camping in the area. Regardless of his supplies and condition, the search teams were also equipped with aerial support craft that utilized advanced thermal imaging technologies, making it remarkably easy to pick up any interesting hotspots several miles in radius. As of right now, those involved in the investigation said that many questions still remain. Our planet's southernmost continent is the most uninhabited land on the face of the Earth. It's not without trying and efforts made by researchers and explorers that this land seems to be shrouded in mystery, more rather due to the area being located directly on top of the South Pole, and because of this fact, appears to be amongst the most inhospitable places in the world to visit. However, new and upcoming evidence appears to have challenged this notion of inhabitation, as relics of an ancient civilization appears to have surfaced only recently. Although a megalithic structure might be hard to explain, a truly impossible discovery for researchers to dismiss is the supposed findings of mysterious aircrafts all across the Antarctic continent that have been sighted via the use of satellite surveillance of the entire icy landmass. First found by internet theorists, online images have surfaced of strange objects hiding within ice caves and remote areas across the Antarctic. Further satellite images can also be seen of large outcroppings that many online users have speculated are possible crashed objects, of which can be seen casting large shadows in patterns directly following each other. Enthusiasts have also claimed that there is evidence of trapped, unidentified objects deep within the glacial formations of the icy continent, trapped there and waiting to be uncovered by research teams stationed on the southern continent. Although skeptics have said that these are just natural formations and don't show anything mysterious, others don't believe this and state that each year more and more strange objects are being discovered.
Teresa Gibson disappears from the Great Smoky Mountains. On October 8, 1976, Teresa Lynn Gibson, also known as Trenny, went on a field trip to the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. She traveled with 35 to 40 of her classmates from Bearden High School in Knoxville, Tennessee. Despite being surrounded with a group and other hikers, 16-year-old Trenny mysteriously disappeared from the park. The field trip was odd to begin with. There were almost 40 students, yet only one teacher to supervise them, plus the bus driver. According to some students, they were not even informed of their field trip destination until they arrived at the park. Only then did they find out that they would be hiking about 1.8 miles from Clingman's Dome to Andrews Bald, and then returning to the Forney Ridge Trail. When students began their hike, they split up into smaller groups based on their walking speed. Throughout the day, Trenny walked at different paces with various groups of classmates. However, at some point in the afternoon, she mysteriously vanished. She was last seen by classmates near Clingman's Dome at 3 p.m. They were hiking along a fairly steep trail with thick vegetation and sudden drop-offs. Apparently, she glimpsed something on the right side of the trail and left the path. That was the last time anyone saw her. Rescue teams began searching for her in the late afternoon. The weather and fall foliage made it difficult for search and rescue to use helicopters and inspect the trail. Instead, they used tracking dogs to pick up her scent. There were around 6 teams of bloodhounds and German shepherds that searched and picked up her scent near the juncture of the Clingman's Dome Trail and the Appalachian Trail. They followed her scent past Clingman's Dome Tower up until 1.5 miles from Newfound Gap. The scent then disappeared along the roadside. Multiple theories have arisen, and suspects investigated. Some believe Trenny was in Clingman's Dome observation tower while the initial search was being conducted because it was never inspected. Once the searchers left, she travelled to the roadside where she got into a car, either voluntarily or against her will. There are some reports of cigarettes and beer cans found along the roadside. Trenny's classmate, Robert Simpson, was implicated as a suspect since her hairbrush was discovered in his car, but police quickly dismissed the idea. Trenny's parents, Robert and Hope Gibson, informed the police of a previous break-in by a young man whom Mrs. Gibson shot at. After being shot, he threatened to hurt their daughter. Although the authorities investigated this man, there were no leads for them to follow. Searches were conducted extensively through October and then again from April 18th to May 5th, 1977, but to no avail. Searches resumed in 1981 as well, but they never found anything. Kim Pouncey, a friend of Trenny's, gave an interview in November 2017 for an episode of Appalachian Unsolved where she expressed her doubt of an abduction. She believes Trenny left of her own accord and had someone waiting for her in the park, that she had planned it because she wanted to leave and get away. After so many searches, the rangers of the national park were convinced that she was not in the park. Her body was never found. There are no current suspects, leads, or evidence. It's strange that a young girl could vanish while on a popular trail in the middle of the day surrounded by people. Whether she orchestrated her own disappearance or was kidnapped will remain a mystery. Craig Freer. In 2004, a high school student from New York went missing at just 17 years old. The young lad had been visiting a friend where he was consoled about a recent breakup. Whilst he had clearly been upset about him and his girlfriend, he reportedly did not give any indication that he may run away, nor did he say anything to suggest he would cause himself harm. This seemed a run-of-the-mill teenage breakup, at least until leaving his friend's house and walking into the woods. He never arrived back home. Adding to the distress in the boy's life, the day of his disappearance, his parents found out he lost his part-time job at the Price Chopper supermarket weeks prior. Craig had been pretending to show up and complete his shifts so that his parents would not find out he had been let off. His wallet and $40 in cash were found in his bedroom, just one of the reasons authorities do not believe Craig ran away or left of his own will. He had not applied for a job in the US, opened a bank account, or paid taxes since he was last seen, evident through the lack of activity surrounding his social security number. Craig lost his driver's license before his disappearance and did not get another before he went missing. Craig did not have a criminal record, any known behavioral issues or enemies. He was in fact a popular, bright student when in high school and had plans to study elementary education at college. However, before he went missing, some friends and family described him as acting secretive. Furthermore, Craig had run away once before, though only for a night, as an early teenager. 16 years on, and there continues to be a Facebook group searching for him, with friends and family actively looking for him. To this day, Craig Frere's case remains open, unsolved, and with no new leads.
So, what do you make of these unsolved mysteries? Be sure to leave your questions and answers in the comment section below and help us to grow this community while working to solve these unexplained mysteries. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos.